They say autumn is the season of change. But no one ever tells you how quietly that change creeps in, like a whisper through bare trees, like golden leaves falling without sound, like time itself tiptoeing past your window. In a small village outside Munich, nestled among sleepy hills and old cobbled streets, there lived a woman named Elena Weber. She was once a vibrant schoolteacher, full of books, ideas, and stories. Now, in her late 70s, she lived alone in a house filled with silence. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, but heavy. The kind of silence that echoed off the walls when you said something, only to realize no one was listening anymore. Her husband, Marcus, had passed away 10 winters ago, and her only daughter, Sophia, now lived in New York. Distant in miles and slowly, distant in heart. They still spoke, occasionally. A birthday call, a holiday greeting, but time and life have a way of pulling people apart. Elena never blamed Sophia, but deep down, she missed her every single day. Each morning, Elena followed the same routine. She would wake before sunrise, wrap herself in a thick, knitted cardigan, make herself a cup of black coffee, and walk into the garden where golden leaves covered everything. She didn't rake them because they bothered her. She raked them because it gave her hands something to do. She watched the trees growing more bare by the day, and somehow, she saw herself in them, losing leaves, one season at a time. Sometimes, she would sit on the wooden bench Marcus had built decades ago, staring into the misty sky, trying to remember his laugh, trying to hear his voice in the wind. It had become her rhythm. Wake, rake, sit, remember, repeat. The seasons came and went, but her life stood still. That is, until one quiet morning in early October. There was a knock at the door. She hadn't heard that sound in weeks, maybe months. Slowly, she opened the door, and there he was, a small boy, with wild brown hair, curious eyes, and a book clutched in both hands. "Hi," he said. "My grandma says you used to teach her. She said you're the best teacher in the village. Can you help me read?" Elena blinked. It had been years since anyone called her a teacher. Years since anyone had come to her not with pity, but with purpose. She looked at the boy, his name was Felix, and something in his eyes reminded her of herself, long ago. She nodded, just once. From that day on, everything began to shift, slowly, softly, like leaves in the wind. Every morning, Felix would come with his book, and together they'd sit under the old oak tree. Elena taught him letters, then words, then sentences. But more than that, they shared stories. Felix would ask strange, beautiful questions. Why do trees let their leaves go? And Elena would smile and reply, so they can rest and be ready to grow again in spring. One day, Felix looked at her and asked, "Do people grow again too?" Elena looked away for a moment, took a deep breath. "Sometimes," she said, "just not always in ways we expect." Soon, the villagers began to notice. The quiet house at the end of the lane, the one with the lady who never waved, now had laughter in the mornings, and sometimes warm apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Elena started going to the little market again. She smiled at strangers. She bought crayons for Felix, and inside her, something was thawing, something long asleep. She found an old photo of herself, Marcus, and Sophia, taken in that same garden, beneath that same oak tree. She placed it on the table near the window, where the sunlight could touch it. Soft emotional music built slightly, string and piano. Felix never knew what he had done. He was just a boy learning to read. But for Elena, he was a season changer. He reminded her that even in the heart of autumn, when everything seems to fall, life, too, is quietly beginning again. One day, as they sat together, reading about forests and foxes, Felix looked up and said, "I like coming here. Your house feels warm." Elena smiled, and for the first time in years, her eyes filled with tears. But they weren't the sad kind. They were the kind that water something new. Ending, gentle fading music, wind softly howling. Autumn, a season often mistaken for an ending, but maybe, just maybe, it's a beginning in disguise. Elena still wakes early. She still drinks her black coffee. She still rakes the leaves.
But now,
she hums. She laughs. And sometimes she tells stories. Because even in falling, we find meaning. Even in silence, we hear echoes of hope. And even in the coldest seasons, something warm can always return.